Hey guys, it's Final Master Link, and this is going to be a video about my final thoughts on Breath of the Wild. I have completed the game now. I put in pretty good number of hours. It was an enjoyable experience, needless to say. I just wanted to cover some of the things I mentioned in my last video with my first impressions. Story is probably about it what I expected from a Zelda game, that kind of feel good fantasy, kill Ganon sort of thing that you see with pretty much every Zelda game. Not really much complaints with the story. With one little thing in that regards, like the voice acting, like all the voice actors I think did a good job, especially with their first time in a Zelda game. At least for the English, who knows how it did for other countries and other languages. But as far as the English cast, I think they did a good job. Um, in fact, I'd like to see a couple do some more work. For example, the voice of Impa and Zelda, I thought that stood out personally as some of the better voice talent. So congrats to that, Nintendo. You did a good job of that. Or Nintendo of America, I'm assuming they got people for English to do the voice acting. Uh, the game is content rich. Let me tell you that right now. There's so much fucking content in this game. If that's your kind of thing, if you just love a shit ton of content that you could spend easily over 100 hours playing the game and still not get everything done, this is your game. Like, that's definitely a positive for it as a regular game and as a Zelda game. I'm going to actually have like two different scores. The first is going to be the game on its own merits, and then as a Zelda game in the franchise, how I think it stands up. Um, the shrines are pretty unique, more so than I thought originally. At first, I thought they were just kind of out in the middle of nowhere, like you just kind of walk up to one that you see from like a tower that you're high above the world for, and you just see one and you're just like, oh, I'm gonna go fly to it. Well, it turns out there are actually a good number of these shrines where you actually have to do some kind of a task or challenge in order to get to it. There's just one that really stood out in my mind, and I thought it was probably the most original thing that the game could do. So there's this island off of the east coast. You can like kind of sail on a raft, kind of like in the original Zelda. You have a raft you can use to to cross certain water bodies of water. I don't know why I can't talk today. You get a raft and you can use it to cross part of the ocean in the game. And there's this island to the east, and when you land on the island, it actually proposes you with a challenge. It will take your items away, it'll take your equipment away, it'll basically leave you almost completely naked on the island. And what it wants you to do is basically to use your own wits and survival skills to gather these three orbs and put them in their proper places, and then you will have your items returned to you and then be granted a spirit orb. I gotta admit, that's pretty fucking original. For a Zelda game, no less, to do that kind of thing, to get essentially a piece of heart. So I really gotta hand it off to them. If they can come up with that many great ideas about these shrines, it's definitely not your typical thing to just like in past games you'd see like a heart piece on like a tree and you just have to like throw your boomerang at it and just grab it towards you or something like that. It's much more involved, so that's definitely something I wanted to add on to my last review. The shrines are definitely interesting and worth your time, especially the ones where you just don't find in the middle of nowhere. You actually have to work a bit for. And another one, I know I did a race in the Gerudo Desert. You had to race somebody in order to get a shrine opened up as well. And there's this one place near the what do they call them? Rito, the bird people, where you had to find five of these girls at this shrine, and they with their song it helped you to figure out a puzzle on how to get the shrine to open up to you. So it's really original in that regard, and I think that's they put their thinking caps on in that instance. So well done, Nintendo. The combat. Now I was kind of bitching about the weapon durability, and I still stand by that. I think that is a problem with the game. Both sides for a Zelda game and for just a game on its own. I think that's what holds it back from being like perfect in everyone's eyes, or at least in my eyes, I suppose. But the combat really, it's just as good as any Zelda game, any 3D Zelda game, I should say. As good as Skyward Sword, as good as Ocarina of Time, as good as Twilight Princess. I mean, pretty much Ocarina of Time cemented how they did combat in Zelda games. Let's be honest. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So the combat is definitely nice. Feels good. Satisfying killing enemies. It's you actually get some fair challenge for some of these. I want to call them. I don't know if I'd call them mini bosses, but they're just like tougher enemies. For example, there's like a centaur guy in the game, which I think I've only taken down one, and they're tough as shit. Like usually you want to be riding a horse in order to take them down properly because he pretty much hands you your ass if you're just walking up to him normally without a horse. You want to be at his level, so to speak, kind of like that guy in the footage that I just shot. He pretty much is like that, only a lot bigger and a lot easier to kill you. And as far as I know, he doesn't shoot swords in the game. Anyways, um, the other thing I need to add in is this is an addicting game. It is. I have been addicted at times to when I played The Elder Scrolls V and when I played Fallout New Vegas. I did get addicted. Uh, like 6 hours goes by and you don't even realize it's been 6 hours. That's what you'd call an addicting nature to a game. The same can be said for like when I played Harvest Moon, for example, because I think that's an addicting series. Not just a game. I think the whole series has an addicting nature to it. So that's definitely a plus. You will lose a lot of time in this game, let me tell you. And it kind of feels like time well spent, even though you probably should have been doing other things in your life. But yeah, there are definitely a lot of good things to say about this game. Now, a couple of the issues that I said before, they still kind of cement, so it's kind of twofold. The positives are, a little bit more enhanced, but they're still there. But however, the negatives are still kind of there. With the exception of one, I complained that there was a little bit of lag, like a little bit of frame rate drop. I really haven't experienced anything else from my first impression. So like the rest of the time I put in the game, I'll be honest, I probably put in like 60 hours to the game. That's a lot. I mean, I've never put so much time in a Zelda game before. Probably about 70 hours if I want to be more realistic. 60 hours is just a rough guesstimation, but it was a lengthy adventure, and I still haven't done all the shit. I just, did enough to beat the game. And granted, I did some good extra stuff to get like extra heart pieces, and I wanted to get some good equipment and weapons. And of course, I got the Master Sword because I think that's actually optional in this game. I don't think you have to have it, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Uh, the game it dragged on a bit. I'll be honest. There were times like I want to say after I beat like the third dungeon, I was just like, is this shit gonna end or what? Like I was getting tired of the game, and I didn't want that to happen, especially for a series that I love to death. But that's what happens when you get sidetracked by a shit ton of side quests. I'm playing Dead Island right now, and I'm doing the same exact thing. It's just with this type of open world sort of game. Like in Dying Light, whenever I see a side quest, like whenever I can talk to someone or like find a flyer talking about how someone needs help, I just grab the fuck. I just grab the thing. Even if it says it's almost impossible to do, I grab it so I know when I feel like it, I can just try to do it when I'm just out running from zombies or whatever. And the same thing for Fallout, and the same thing for Skyrim. I just grabbed a side quest. Whatever side quest I could grab it, and I would. And regardless if I ever intend on completing it or not, I would just grab it. It's just a habit I do. Um, so it's easy. You get overwhelmed in this game, I think. The brittle weapons, it's still a problem. I don't think it's as big an issue because of you can actually equip you can how do I describe it? You can add on to your equipment bag. You can carry more equipment by getting these things called Korok seeds, which It's kind of hard how you get them. Normally, you just look for something suspicious out on the world map. Like, let's say you're just walking and you see a random rock in a sort of weird formation, and like say you pick up a rock or two, and then a Korok will appear with it, which if you don't know what they are, they're forest spirits from like Wind Waker, pretty much look exactly like them. And I kind of like that reference because I haven't seen them since Wind Waker. So, and they'll just give you a seed for finding them. It's kind of like a scavenger hunt, like a hide and go seek game, and there are tons of them throughout, and you can exchange them for slot upgrades. So that kind of helps, meaning you can always have more weapons as opposed to only being able to carry 5. I think I can carry like 10 or so, or maybe even 11. And you can also upgrade your shield storage and your fucking shit. What is it? Your bow storage. So that's definitely nice to do. But still, I still think it is an issue. Even when you get like these things called guardian weapons, which are like really good damage output and they're supposed to have high durability. It still why do they have to degrade? I don't understand. And you wanna know the thing that pisses me off the most? Actually, two things. Whenever you beat a dungeon, you actually get a special item. You actually get a special piece of equipment for beating that dungeon. That sounds kind of cool, right? Well, here's the problem. They degrade also, just like every other weapon. The only difference between these and the others is you can actually repair them using some kind of precious gem, like diamonds or something like that, or topaz. I don't quite remember. I know one requires some diamonds to repair, but it's like, why do they gotta degrade? Couldn't you just have these 4 special items that you get after beating the dungeons? Can't you just make them last forever? Like, I don't understand why they did that. It's fucking stupid. Nobody wants to have to worry about constantly repairing each piece of weaponry. It's just dumb. And the thing that pissed me off the most is even when you get the Master Sword, and I thought, oh, this is great. I have enough strength to because I think you need like 12 heart containers in order to even pick up the damn thing. I was like, oh, cool. I finally have the hearts to pick it up. Now I went to you know, the fuck you call it, the Lost Woods, and I took it out of the pedestal, and I was like, okay, sweet, I finally got the Master Sword. Well, guess fucking what? That thing is actually has a charge cooldown. Like you can only use it to a certain extent, and then just like loses its edge, so to speak. Like it just becomes like a pocket knife. You can't use it for shit, and then you have to wait for it to recharge. Who the fuck thought that was a good idea? It's fucking retarded. Out of all the weapons, out of all the weapons that you should have to last as long as you want it to have the option to use it whenever you want it to, whether it's killing Ganon or opening up a can of tuna, it should be the Master Sword. It should be, but it isn't. It has a fucking time limit on it. That's fucking retarded. Why did they do that? It's fucking dumb. Now, granted, that's more of a Zelda complaint than like a game complaint. But still, that's fucking dumb. The most legendary weapon, the Blade of Evil's Bane. You're saying you're saying the game will only let me use it when it wants it to? No, I should be able to use it whenever I want to. It's it's just anyways, let's go on. The stamina gauge, I bitched about it before. Granted, it does get better the more you upgrade it, and I've upgraded it numerous times throughout the game. Although I don't think it's ever enough, really, for two major reasons. You're going to be climbing a good majority of the game, a good majority, and occasionally you'll have stuff trying to come after you or shoot at you or something. And in order to stay on that thing, you have to have high stamina. Uh, I think, actually, no, never mind. In order to keep climbing up, you have to have a lot of stamina. And I've actually learned this, depending on how steep of the angle it is, it'll use up more stamina, which I wish I would have known that before. But granted, it makes it more realistic. But I mean, you need stamina to do everything. You need to swim. You need to run. You need to climb. You need to glide. Why is it in there? I don't understand why it's in there. They should have just got rid of it. It just makes everything slowed down. Even though it makes things more realistic, nobody wants to wait for their gauge to fill up when they're climbing, a cliff face. It's just they should have never had that. Should have never been in Skyward Sword, but at least in Skyward Sword they gave you those little fruits that you can run around in. Like literally there was a fruit like every I want to say like every like 5 yards there was one of those fruits where you grabbed and I think it filled it up maximum. So at least you had that in Skyward Sword, and here you don't really have shit unless you eat some kind of food or whatever. But there's a lot more important things than stamina. I think health and defense and attack strength is much more you know needed than that. But that's kind of me. And I know there's a rock climbing outfit that you can get to help with rock climbing, so you'll use less stamina. Although I'm not quite sure where all the pieces are. I managed to find two, but granted it helps, but a lot of people aren't even going to run into that unless they're a completionist. So it's like, so what? The gamepad sucks. I recommended using the Wii U Pro controller for this. Now I highly recommend using the Wii U Pro controller for this. The gamepad, it just does not work. Uh, it's too big. It's too clunky. I'm not quite sure how it is on the Switch, but on the Wii U, if you have a Wii Pro controller, just use that. Don't even bother with a gamepad. I actually got a Wii Pro controller for like $35, even though I had it listed for 40. I think they gave me a discount or something. I got it from a used retro game store. Um, you know, I'm sure I'll use it for other Wii U games. Like for example, I still got to play Twilight Princess for the Wii U because I got that on sale on Black Friday. So, you know, uh, this is one of the last. This is probably the second biggest con that I can think of. Is that they pretty much destroyed the dungeon progression in this game. You're given all the items before. Um, what are you given? You're given a bombs. You're given basically a magnet. You're given something called cryonosis or whatever. Basically, it freezes water. That's essentially what it does. And you have this thing called stasis, which basically like stops time. I wouldn't really call it that. It like stops physics. It like stops physics from being applied to an object. Like let's say I had a ball rolling down towards me. If I just stopped it, it would prevent that ball from continuing to roll to like hit me in the face. So it like stops physics is probably more accurately what you would call it. Uh, so those are more or less my thoughts on the game. Now, on its own merits, I would say it's pretty damn good. Um, I've heard some people give it a 10 out of 10, and I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. This game is not a 10 out of 10, people. I don't know what the fuck you're thinking. I don't think this is on the level of Ocarina of Time, which even though Twilight Princess is my favorite, there's a difference between favorite and the best. I think the best Zelda game was Ocarina of Time, personally. Uh, the exploration, yes, it was there, but I don't think it was too oversaturated, which I think is probably the main issue with this game. They made it too much like Skyrim and Fallout and other games. Uh, Inspiration is certainly great, but I think they just went over the bar with that. And the other thing, so like as a Zelda game, I'd probably give it like a 6 out of 10, to be honest. Um, and like the last 3D Zelda game, Skyward Sword, for a 3D Zelda game, because I don't think it's really fair to compare a 2D Zelda game to a 3D Zelda game. I mean, that'd be like comparing Super Mario 64 to Mario Bros. 3. That's not fair, you know. Different technology, different era, different graphics, different pretty much everything. So, any comments you guys might have, feel free to say them. Any death threats, feel free to show them. I'd probably laugh at them, to be honest. I don't take this stuff too seriously. I'm not a Zelda fanboy. I'm not. I'm not afraid to say the flaws of a game because here's the thing, the flaws of a game, if they fix it for the next one, I could probably say it's a 9 or a 10. And I could see people saying it's a 9, to be honest. I could see that. I don't personally, though. I'd say it's an 8 out of 10. Game on its own merits. Certainly worth the $60 I paid for it. I definitely think you guys should pick it up if you have a Wii U. Don't get it for a Switch, though, because you'll beat it in like a month and you'll have nothing to play. Don't be an idiot. Uh, and I guess that's the end of the video, just like it's the end of this playthrough here, the first game. So that's all I have to say about that. I'll see you guys later.